As negotiations continue over the debt ceiling down in D.C., several groups are rallying against cuts to Medicare, Social Security, and other social programs. They are holding demonstrations outside the offices of New York's congressional representatives who supported the Ryan budget plan. Here to explain more is Michael Burgess, who is the public policy consultant for the statewide Senior Action Council. Michael, it's good to see you.
Hi, Liz.
We are back to talking about substance after Wienergate and same-sex marriage sort of took us away from this particular topic. Medicare, of course, was the top issue, and the debt ceiling a little bit less so, but Medicare was the top issue because of Kathy Hochul's big win out in Western New York. Now we are back, and it seems things are stalemated. So tell me what you guys are up to.
Well, we're really organizing a lot of groups to say that, you know, we're not really happy with this discussion being all targeted on cutting entitlement programs, which the majority of people of this country support these programs. They realize that there are problems, but that we feel they're using the circumstance to try to dismantle the programs and take away the successful social insurance model of Medicare, make Medicaid a block grant to the states, and even go after Social Security, which has its own problems but not part of this deficit.
When you say they, that's sort of a very large catch-all. Do you really honestly believe it's only the Republicans? Because when you talk to Democrats, they generally say, as you just did, there are problems. I mean, repeatedly we spoke to Kathy Hochul about this, and she said, we need to reform it, but we can't dismantle it.
Oh, absolutely. There are things that need to be done. I would point out, which is not even being discussed, that there are many measures in the Affordable Care Act that are there to save money and to change Medicare. In fact, that's all we heard last year when the bill passed was that, oh, you're dismantling Medicare on the other side. So, I mean, there were things done. And I happen to believe, as I said on your show once before, that we can reduce through better care coordination and save a lot of money on Medicare, but that hasn't been implemented yet.
Is this the precursor to 2012 when groups like yours, and I mean, we're talking about a lot of different groups. We're looking at some fairly politically active groups, the AFL-CIO, Citizen Action, of course, 1199, a huge healthcare workers union, and then there are others that are less political, the Association on Independent Living, for example, or the Alliance of Retired Americans. But is this a precursor to political action in 2012 where you are going to try and defeat folks like, for example, Marianne Burkle?
Well, my organization that I work with, the Statewide Senior Action Council, is nonpartisan, so we will not be doing that. You know, our members may decide on their own to do that, and I would just point out, you know, we've worked in this state, at least the capital, very successfully with both parties and passed a lot of good health bills. But, you know, we want to educate them about the bill that was passed. I think the bill is ridiculous, the Ryan Medicare plan that would cost $6,000 more for an individual who goes on Medicare 10 years from now. They would pay basically 68% of their cost for Medicare. Meanwhile, that budget gives more tax breaks to very wealthy people.
You know, the Republicans particularly would say things like, well, the Democrats are actually, this is a red herring by the Democrats because, quote-unquote, Obamacare already changed Medicare. Is that true?
Well, it changed it, and they complained that it cut $500 million,
right.
$1 billion rather, out of Medicare.
Right.
But where is that $500 billion? It was taken out of Medicare Advantage plans, insurance plans, which are being overpaid. People don't often understand this, but they came in with the idea of managed care being 95% of the cost of Medicare. It's turned out to be 110%. And yeah, that's what's going on here. And why is it that the Republicans are being so careful to defend the financial interests of the insurance companies, and they can do a $6,000 hit on the seniors?
What's the best case scenario here? I mean, obviously this is the same thing that the Republicans were trying to do to the Democrats around health care reform.
Right.
Right. It's just switched now. So the Democrats are trying to do to the Republicans around Medicare what was done to them in 2010, right? I mean, obviously it's all political. Even if you don't plan on unelecting or anyone, you have to admit that political pressure is pretty much the way to go.
Well,
That's
yeah.
what this is about,
I mean,
obviously.
I would love to see that they would all come to some agreement, but you know, everybody's locked into their positions. That you know, you heard the death panels last year coming from some on the right, and people just feel that, you know, on the other side we're just going to talk about tax increases. I say that the reality is we need to, this is a problem not just of Medicare, this is a problem of the whole health care system. There were changes that were made, whether people like them or not, that have to be implemented. We're doing those even when the governor proposed in quality of care in this state that we be looking at the coordination of care is really the answer to saving a lot of money. Now, it may take a while, Also, if you're looking at Medicare being an expensive program, nobody is opening the debate to taxes, and you know, nobody wants to hear that. But the reality is, with this large population of older people, if the people of this country really think Medicare is important, as they showed in that district, then even bumping the payroll tax up from 1.45% that we now pay to 1.95% has to be looked at, but
okay,
nobody's
but
discussing.
Nobody's talking about that.
No, they're not.
What they are talking about is taxes on the super rich, right?
Right.
And then ending tax subsidies or tax breaks for oil companies. These are two big baddies. Everybody hates those guys. I mean, you know, if you're
right.
unless you're really rich or you happen to be an oil company.
But the Ryan budget, for example, it makes all these statements that Medicare is going broke, it's a disaster, blah, blah, blah. Nobody is saying that there are other ways of dealing with this. And if, as I say, if you have a large older population and the people of this country depend on Medicare, not only that, I would point out that what happened in the 26th was not just older people. You're my age. You have an 82-year-old mother. You have to be concerned about that. We're caregivers, a lot of us. People like me and older people older than me are constantly concerned about issues related to health care proxy, financial planning, caregiving, getting the services that their family needs. This issue cuts to the core of America. And for anybody to just flip off the idea that we can just dismantle the program and make the people pay 2/3 of it, I think is wrong.
You know, the president said today, and he actually had a press conference today, and not something he does every day, obviously, and he did say, quote, that both parties must be prepared to take on their sacred cows. Does that concern you?
Well, I think it concerns me if the debate is not about all the things I just said, you know,
right.
that we don't look at all of the options. There's no question that there will, if this country is going to reduce its debts, that there will have to be changes made. But what we're trying to say is that why is the burden being put upon the people most in need in this country? That is what our coalition is about. It's about there was an American dream, an American promise. And it seems like so many things are off the table. No sacrifice required of the very wealthy in this country. Why is it, again, as I say, that all the demands are coming? I know these programs cost a lot of money, but we have to be committed to preserve these programs.
Okay, before I let you go, when you say that you are going to be mobilizing supporters this summer, all summer, against
right.
the supporters, all Republicans, let's be honest now.
Well, I don't think all the Republicans are supporting the dismantling of Medicare.
No, they are not. But the people who supported the Paul Ryan plan
right.
were all Republicans in New York. Who's targeted, and what will you be doing to them over the next couple of months?
Well, it won't be just Republicans. I mean, we have a few Democrats in this state who won by a very small margin,
sure.
including Kathy Hochul and Bill Owens. And I mean, Bill Owens voted not for that plan. But we want to let them know there are people behind them who have their back, and that the others, we would hope, as we do here in the state legislature, we try to convince them, you know, that what is the real impact of this on your constituents? And I believe, having worked at this for a long time, that when you tell people, members of Congress, what the impact is on their constituents, and more of them say that they will look at that very hard, and they will try, and they already did. I mean, they sort of backed off after that election and said, well, maybe that's not the final plan.
Right.
So we want to change what is being proposed and not make it focused on hurting the people who need it the most.
Okay, so some of these folks are going to be seeing quite a lot of you and your supporters over the next couple of weeks.
Well, we certainly will. And again, it will be on everybody that we have to shore up the Democrats and make sure that they're very strong about this and not just back off.
Okay, well, I want to thank you, Michael Burgess. It's going to be a rather long summer for some members of Congress.
A busy one.
Yes, indeed. I want to thank you for
Liz.
spending time with us.